Are we ready?
Yes.
I'd like to reconvene the Village Council Parks Recreation August 30th meeting. Order first up is adoption of. Do you want to open yours back up now? Or, I don't know if
I'll reopen the Parks Recreation Greenway Board meeting.
Thank you. First up is the adoption of the Village Council agenda. Do you have any changes, additions?
I'd like to remove unfinished business item A, consider adoption of ordinance to consider amending village order to allow mayor to vote on matters.
Okay.
Are we on the consent agenda by any chance?
No, we're not doing consent agenda yet. We'll get to that when we'll address consent agenda when we get there. Anything else? If it's okay with, and this isn't on the agenda, but if it's okay with the rest of the council, I would like to get, because it's not on here, a quick admin update on, we had a couple things, directions that we talked about at the last meeting, so I just had a couple quick questions on that. So if everyone's okay with that, just add that to, I guess. Well, is it unfinished business?
So we're going to get to it.
What are we on?
Okay.
What are you adding?
Administrator update, just from the last meeting that we had. We neglected to put it in, but I had a quick question on a couple.
Put it in between public hearing and new business as an administrative report.
Okay.
Okay.
Consent, you mean? Between public
Do you
hearing?
mind speaking up so that we can pick it up?
Yeah, we can't hear back here.
Okay, sorry.
Put it between public hearing.
Yes,
After the public
okay.
hearing, between that and new business,
Okay.
the administrative report.
In new business?
No, just put it in between.
Okay.
Usually you
Okay,
don't have
great.
an administrative report.
Right,
then
okay.
you will hold.
Now, Mary, I just asked to remove amending the village charter to allow mayor to vote on all matters, but I gather we still have to hold the public hearing,
Yes.
so we might as well leave the discussion on.
I mean, we don't have to hold it, but we can, you can propose to table the public hearing if that's what you want, if you want.
So that would be, I retract my motion, my request to remove the discussion. Instead, I'd like to table both items, the public hearing and the item A under unfinished business to a meeting where more people can attend, an evening meeting, which would be our next regular meeting on September 11th. I think it's at 6:30 p.m.
Again, please, we can't hear back here.
I'm requesting that council table the public hearing for amending the village charter to allow mayor to vote on all matters to a meeting more conducive to public
Right,
attendance,
yes.
which would be our next regular meeting on September 11th.
We'll have to re-advertise it, yeah. Or they, no, they can just postpone it until the 11th, so we wouldn't have to
We can still have
re-advertise
it.
it.
We have people here ready to speak. They've taken time off of work.
Well,
Plus, there's been ample time, I believe, to submit emails, which we plan to read, I believe. So we can still hold the public hearing. As far as voting on it, we don't have to vote on it today, which means we can have the real discussion in September 11th meeting. I'm fine with that. That's opinion one. We do have I believe, a hard stop at 10:45 today, and we do want to get through as much as we can with PRG. So because I think Nick wants to make sure he's involved in the rest of the unfinished business matters. But I'm fine with not addressing. We'll hear the public comments. People have taken their time to be here. They can also use the public comments on September 11th to voice their concerns if they want to come September 11th, because that would be the first reading, if I'm not mistaken.
But that also starts the clock on the public hearing. As you know, I'm sure you do, that once you hold the public hearing, as of that point, you're now following the clock in terms of the statute.
Right.
So by tabling that public hearing and starting that clock on the next day, you've provided everyone with that much more chance to weigh in. I'm not saying one way or the other where I'm standing, but I just wouldn't want anyone to be misled to think that tabling doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference.
Could that be said again? I had difficulty hearing it back here.
Sure, I'll try and be a little louder. What I said was that there seemed to be a discussion between either tabling the public hearing or simply holding the public hearing and perhaps giving the public comment period at the next meeting to start that. And my comment to that was that by tabling the public hearing, we have not started the statutory clock that is required by the process. So there is a difference in that regard. So if we table it, we don't start the clock and we give the public that much more time to weigh in. However, if we hold the public hearing today, that clock is started. And so that's why I'm saying that.
So those who are opposed would prefer for it to be tabled.
Yeah,
So-
we're not getting into discussion with the audience.
We can't
We're just-
discuss with the audience, but I will stand up so everyone can hear me. My goal is to give the residents the most opportunity to chime in on this consideration to change the charter to allow the mayor to vote, because I am against it. I'm against changing the village charter to give our mayor a tool that we haven't had for 20 years, since the village was incorporated. So I'm against it. I suggest we table it. Everyone that's here to speak can still speak. It'll be on record.
No, they wouldn't.
No, they
We
would
wouldn't
not.
have the public hearing.
It would go under
There-
public comment. I thought you
We
just
don't
said
have
that.
public
No, we don't have public comment.
You can add public comment.
They're here, they've taken time off of work.
So I'd like to add public comment to today's agenda and table the actual public hearing to our regular meeting, which makes more sense. We shouldn't be having a public hearing on a work session. This is a work session designed to have a joint meeting with Parks and Greenways, and it's really not for something this big. And to Mary's point, if you didn't hear her, she said it does matter because the clock starts ticking once you hold the public hearing. So we'd have to add public comment for the people here to speak, but I would like to table the actual public hearing and the actual, we can discuss it if we want, but table the public hearing to a regular meeting when people can show up. As much as I appreciate everyone that showed up, more can show up at an evening meeting.
Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna have to call that a vote.
Yes.
Do we want to continue, do we want to eliminate the unfinished business items altogether and table those?
Do you want the attorney to chime in on the actual process of the public hearing?
I don't think she needs to, but. if you-
My recommendation is that you would open the public hearing. If you don't want to have any comments today, that's fine, but recess it to the next meeting. That way, we don't have to re-advertise. But the clock will start, but we have plenty of time.
So,
How much does it cost to re-advertise, or does it cost us anything?
It cost us, the last advertisement was like $125.
So it costs $125 to give people more time to digest the information and to show up at a regular meeting,
At a regular meeting.
which it,
That's not at 9 in the morning.
that's not a 9 in the morning.
so then I guess we need a motion then to table the public hearing. We'll start with.
You can break
First
it
one.
down item by item.
Okay.
Let me make a
We'll
motion
have
to
that to 2
add
days.
public comment first.
Okay.
Would that be appropriate?
No, I think it's.
We don't have public comment ever in work sessions.
It doesn't matter, you can still add it.
Okay, you can do it. Go ahead.
You can still propose adding it.
Please, go ahead.
Could I just ask a question?
No, actually, we need to get through this, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to add public comment.
Okay.
They don't advertise on Saturday.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And I'll be the split.
When they're voting,
Yes.
you don't speak.
We're not sure that we have enough time to re-advertise, so if y'all can just give us a second.
Yeah, just hold on 1 second before you start making a vote here. Yeah, there's 2 days and then they don't run on
Does this make sense to
Saturday.
you, Mary?
Absolutely. I mean, the idea of having time to advertise, we're not on anyone's timeline. So we advertise
We don't
when
have
we can
time to
advertise.
re-advertise.
I
They
don't
have to
see what
either
the rush
have
is.
it
I think they're concerned
or
about
recess.
if your idea is September 11th meeting, is there enough time to
We
advertise for that?
have to advertise 10 days in advance.
So
Yes,
we can
and-
do it at the next regular meeting, which September would be
Which would be October.
Yeah.
That's plenty.
Now moving it out 2 months. Okay, so there's a vote on the table to add public comments. 2 yeas, is that correct? All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Add
Yes.
public comments?
Yes,
Yes.
that's
All those opposed?
So you guys are opposed to
Yes.
letting the public speak?
Yes, and I'll be the tie-breaking vote and vote nay on that. Second is to unfinished business items to consider A, B, C, D, E, and F to be tabled to the September 11th meeting. I'll make a motion for that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I understood that part.
Take all of unfinished business because of the time constraints. This meeting really was for the, to address the PRG as well. And because of time constraints with the hard stop at 10:45, I'm asking to table unfinished business, which includes a vote today on the thing. So.
Well, it doesn't include a vote because the statute wouldn't allow you to
Right,
vote on that
right,
today anyway.
right, so we're removing it.
I know, but don't say, you just, listen. You just said, which includes a vote. Those were your words.
Right.
And I'm correcting your words because
Okay.
you are not
Fine,
allowed
Ms.
per the
Speak.
statute.
Fine, so there's a vote
You're
on the
interrupting me,
table.
sir. You're interrupting me. I'm going to finish. Only because you said, which includes a vote on the charter amendment.
Right.
And I am clarifying that that could not be voted on today.
You're
because
correct.
per the law,
You're
you
correct.
can-
I'm agreeing.
You're
with you.
still interrupting me. Can I not finish my
Yes,
sentence?
sure.
Because I've yet to be able to complete it.
Go ahead.
Okay. What I said was, it does not include a vote today because per the statute, you can consider it today, but you cannot vote on it. The vote can only be at the next regular scheduled meeting after the public hearing. If you table the public hearing, that would add another day to that, by the way.
Okay, thank you. All right, so there's a motion on the table to remove A, B, C, D, E, and F on unfinished business and move it to September 11th meeting.
I thought we were going in order. Did we remove the public hearing or not?
Well, we're looking at unfinished business.
I don't want to remove discussion of an item if we haven't removed the item. That's censorship.
Oh,
Let's
no, it is
remove the
right.
actual item first, which is
So-
public hearing item A.
all right, so we'll have a motion to remove public hearing A for today and table it to October, I guess. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
No.
It's a no, Nick? Okay, and I'll.
So I'll amend the
type-
motion to allow us to
Excuse me,
have it
you're
in
interrupting me
September.
now, so we made a motion to move it to October. There's not enough time we determined for September, so we made a motion. That public hearing will still take place today. Now let's move on to
Christina, did you
unfinished
say we
business.
could not hold it in September 11th?
We don't have
No,
time
we
to
don't have enough
advertise
time to
it.
re-advertise it.
How many days do you need?
You need 10 days.
But they don't run the paper, they don't run advertisements every day. We'd have to get it in,
You could open it and recess it if you wanted in September. And then you don't have to
I
re-advertise.
could do that too.
So at what point do we recess it, once the public has commented?
Any point you decide to.
So you can table a public hearing, like you can, take a public hearing and move it into the next session. So you can reopen it in the next meeting.
So I just want to be absolutely clear. Even though today is, what, the 30th, and September 11th is past 10 days out, we cannot meet a 10-day deadline with any newspaper?
we would have to get the advertisement to them in the time that they have to publish it, and it would have to take place tomorrow? When do we have to get, they don't run the paper
They
every day.
require a 2-day business for them to,
That's
for
not
us to
true.
get.
I've done it myself. It's not true. That's not true.
So
But what you
This is,
do-
this is from the EJ.
I
They
know.
require
I worked with them for
2
2.5
business.
years, I know.
Okay.
So,
I'm not-
again, there's a motion on the table for the public hearing, and that we're still going to hold that today. So moving on to unfinished business, a motion to remove all of the items A, B, C, D, E, and F.
I'm going to halt there
They run
because
it on
you did have
Friday,
someone who
yes.
was trying to make a motion, and that does need to be entertained. If that's,
I still want to make a motion to table the public hearing, item A, amending the village charter to allow the mayor to vote on all matters to the September 11th meeting. I'm not buying that we can't get it advertised in 10 days.
Okay.
I think we can.
Okay, that's a motion. Okay, motion's on the table to move it to September 11th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. I'll be the tiebreaker and say no. Moving on, unfinished business. Excuse me, sir, this is not your meeting.
Don't yell at him.
No, I'm not yelling. You're interrupting the
No, and you
meeting.
say it's a tie, and I vote no.
And I vote no. I said
So who
no.
was the second no? I didn't get a second no. The person second
No,
no.
no, I heard it
Okay,
here.
then he needs to speak for himself.
Okay, fine. He did speak.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. There are a lot of people here who are interested, and they deserve our respect.
Absolutely.
And I'm not finished yet. And it's not their fault that they can't hear us. So if someone is often holding their hand up, it's to be often not because they're challenging you, sir.
He didn't
It's
hold
because
up
they
his
can't
hand.
hear.
He didn't hold up his hand, and I apologize if the acoustics aren't great, but we are getting the votes, and I know that so we're moving forward based on the vote. Moving forward, we have any other changes? We added the admin update. Anything else?
I did not want to remove unfinished business item A. If we're going to hold a public hearing, I think we should discuss it.
Well, we matters of time, we're going to move that to the discussion September 11th, when you can have, to your point, more people show up, and they can also speak again at the public hearing, so you'll have a double whammy for not only public hearing today and public comments, and then we'll be able to have more people to hear where we're all coming from. So that motion has been passed. We're moving on. Anything else?
I have a question. Where the sheriff? I know everyone can't hear. My question is, why are the sheriff deputies here?
I asked Ed to be here.
Okay.
And that's it, just for sake of large populations.
And I'm newly appointed over him, so I'm here to show him support.
Oh, you're always welcome. I wasn't sure if the village was spending money to have.
No, sir.
Sure.
I'm on duty, he's on duty. So.
And I didn't want to tie you all up here in a meeting like this,
Okay.
when you could be out there serving the public.
I'm serving the town of Marvin right now.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so I'll need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
All's opposed? Okay. And I'll be a tiebreaker and pass the agenda as amended. Next up on the thing is the consent items.
PRG agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
PRG agenda.
Oh, PRG agenda, please, I'm sorry.
I'll ask if there are any changes, but I do want to, I have some changes just because of the issue with time. I wanted to move some of the 3 items down lower in case we don't get to them.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have the agenda, it's like page 48 in the packet. Anyway, I'm moving item 2, item 4, and item 5 to be down below what is currently 10.
In the same order.
Yes, in the same way.
Okay, I'd like to formally make a motion that we adopt the PRG agenda to move items number 2, 4, and 5 down to below number 10.
There. Second motion.
So the agenda has been approved as amended.
Okay. Next up, we have motion to approve the consent items. Do we have any changes or corrections on that?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
In the minutes, there's one change on the regular 525. Sorry, Barbie, it's actually the 5-8. Number 12. Under the motion, it should just, my last name should be there, just so people know. And then the 531 budget adoption minutes were not in the packet to review. At least they weren't mine.
Okay.
So we'll pull those?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just that one change, and then pull the 531 just because they weren't in my packet.
Okay.
To approve.
Everyone all right with that?
I'd also like to remove the rules of procedure, please, and table them.
Okay, so is there a motion to remove the rules?
I don't need a motion, it's the consent agenda.
Okay.
Consent, any member can remove from the consent agenda.
Okay, so we're not approving the,
Mary, do you want to move them to unfinished business at the next meeting?
Yes,
To
because
discuss
I
them?
understand we moved everything else, right?
okay,
That's
fine.
it, yeah.
Okay, and then anything else? I do have a quick comment on the, remove the word on 5-8 correction. This is for Barbie. On 15 council comments, if you look way down, I think it's the second to last statement or third sentence. It says, just send me an email. Remove the word let, and then also confirming that on the 5/25 meeting that we held, public hearing for the budget will begin at 5 p.m. That was the correct time? Is that correct? Or
I'm sorry, what?
The budget hearing, the hearing that we held for the budget meeting on
Was it 5
May,
p.m.?
it was at 5 p.m.?
Yes.
Just confirming. Oh, it's just on this last, in the minutes, May 25th.
Yeah.
Public hearing for the budget will begin at 5 p.m. I'm just confirming that time is right. Okay, perfect. All right, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have public hearing. Need a motion to open the public hearing OR-2018-08-02, ordinance to consider amending the village charter to allow the mayor to vote on all matters. All in favor?
What did you do with that?
Open it.
Open
You
the
opened
meeting.
it?
Okay.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. 2 opposed, and I will do the tie-breaking vote and allow the meeting to proceed. In the yay vote.
Is the mayor allowed to break a tie on a change this substantial that affects his ability to vote?
Yes, sir.
So he's allowed to vote to give himself the right to vote?
Yes, there's no financial interest.
Okay.
Okay, so next up, I think we hear public comment, is that correct? Do you have a list?
Get them to come to that podium so we can hear them all.
Yeah, let me move the podium.
Just do it up.
If y'all have public comments, if you can come up to the podium to speak so we can, I didn't mess it up, did I?
I'll remind everyone with public comments, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name, your address. This matter should be directed specifically to the public hearing, and no need for any vulgarities or screaming. We can hear. So I know there's a lot of people who want to speak. So with that, do I have the list? Do I read the list?
You want the list?
I'll just call people up. So everybody signed up who wants to sign up, I assume? Okay. First up, I have Kim Vandenberg.
I'm just going to stand here so you guys can hear me. I figure if I stand at the podium, you won't be able to hear me. My name is Kim Vandenberg. I live at 806 Cappington Lane in Marvin. Thank you to all the public who's reached out to me and communicated their concerns. I feel that many people are getting misinformation when it comes to changing the charter to allow the mayor to vote on all issues. I've heard everything from egos to a power grab, etc. This is far from the truth. In reality, this change would allow our small council to ensure that all of council will be heard in matters concerning the village. Right now, the mayor votes if there's a tie, so a 2-2 split. In the case, excuse me, in the case of a tie, the mayor will vote to break that tie. With a change in the charter to allow the mayor to vote on all items, the outcome would be the same if all of council is present. Nothing would change. The mayor would vote to break the tie. If someone is missing, then the mayor votes, and it would be a 2-2 vote with the vote not passing. The same issue can be brought up again and voted on again when all of council is present. By having the mayor vote on all items, it protects the transparency of council and would prevent a coup of any meetings going forward. I've heard this isn't being transparent, but I don't think taking advantage of an absence of a council member and exploiting that absence is transparent at all. There have been emails going around and websites and different propaganda that says that no towns in North Carolina do this. I found a number: Louisville, Gastonia, Oriental, Leland, I could go on. Locally, other municipalities have more than 5 members of council. Ourselves, Weddington, Wesley Chapel, only have 5 that are in Union County. By having such a small council, if one person is out, then the council is run by only 2 people. By allowing the mayor to vote, it ensures that all voices of council and in turn the constituents will be heard.
Thank you. Next up, I have Ralph McLeod.
Okay, my name is Ralph McLeod. I live on 3525 Banyan Way. I'm speaking against the proposal to grant voting privileges to the mayor on all issues instead of voting as a tiebreaker. In checking with communities larger, smaller, and roughly the same size as Marvin, they all allow an elected mayor, such as Mayor Polino, to vote only in the event of a tie. In fact, the vast majority of communities in North Carolina operate this way. I question why the mayor wishes to vote on all issues. As it is now, if 2 of the 4 council members voted in accordance with the desires of Mayor Polino, he can break the tie and have the decision go according to his desires. The only reason I can see for his wish to vote on all issues is if in the future there might be new council members that oppose him. But even then, he could still break a tie, unless there were 3 new members that oppose a given issue. Then his vote would not matter. The whole issue does raise a question about transparency in Marvin's government, an issue of concern with many citizens of Marvin. The fact that there is a provision for an elected mayor to vote on all issues does not mean that it would be the best path for a village government which is already under a cloud of mistrust. I believe that the fact that the overwhelming majority of communities in North Carolina has not chosen to adopt this provision speaks for itself. It is neither a good nor wise choice for our mayor and village council to adopt. I would like to hear directly from the mayor at some point his rationale for wanting to adopt this provision.
Next up, I have John Barrison.
Good morning. My name is John Barasich. I live at 3315 Sandalwood Drive in Providence Estates. It's been my pleasure to serve the Village of Marvin in numerous capacities over the past 17 years. I've served numerous years as chairman of both the Board of Adjustment, Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Committee, and I and many others have worked on groups that have studied and first recommended our tree ordinances, our master plan, and the study and the execution of many of the voluntary annexations that helped make Marvin what it is today. Through all this time, I've gotten to know and interact with almost every mayor, councilman, board member, and staff member in the Village of Marvin. I may not have voted or hired every single one of them, but in almost every single instance, I can say I've been proud to work with them and call them my friends to this day. I have not come across anyone in Marvin, mayor, council, or staff, who has served the village to get rich. That being said, they all have a wealth of ideas and issues that they've brought to the table to improve Marvin to the benefit of all its residents. They've done this under the current government structure. There will always be differences between people regarding those ideas and issues, and the job of our local government is to debate and vet those ideas and issues in an open and transparent way. The issue regarding the change in our charter and the voting rights of the mayor is one that I see being hastily implemented, mainly given to bad blood and personality disputes that goes back to both sides to a fiercely fought election process. There are thoughtful, legitimate changes that could be made to our charter, which could be considered. A larger board with a form of district and at-large representation might be one of them. But any change to our charter should be done with full openness and transparency so the entire community can weigh in. Not rushed and debated at a 9 a.m. meeting on a Thursday. I respectfully request that council take a step back and have a continuous of this public hearing until the next regularly scheduled council so that more people can have their voices heard. Thank you.
Okay, next up I have Ed Hill.
Good morning, I'm Ed Hill, 3405 Rainbow Drive, Valhalla Farms. First of all, thank you all for your service, all of you, for your service to our community. We are blessed to have you participate so actively. I'm opposed to this change for 2 reasons. One is I see no justification for it whatsoever. Why would we need to be different than the standard in the state? Why would we need to be different than other local communities that are like us? No justification whatsoever for making this change. The second reason is a bit more direct. In recent months, we have been a spectacle in the Charlotte community for all the wrong reasons. At one point, our government was actually shut down because of inactivity of the council led by our mayor. We don't need that kind of publicity. We are a beautiful community, and we need to have the positive influence that we have always had before. At a recent, perhaps the last, village council meeting, our mayor threatened to forcibly remove Mary Shakut from the head table. That was outrageous. In the meantime, the local TV cameras were rolling, and we made the local news for all the wrong reasons. We don't need this. We don't need to give our mayor more authority. This is a bad idea, and I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Paul McDevitt.
Paul McDevitt, 3306 Oak Brook Drive. I'll get to it quickly. I echo what's been said. This feels like an effort for you to pack the council. It feels like you're you're rushing this to exploit the unfortunate health situation of one of the village council members, and that's my thought. The other question I have is, have your personal interests in real estate in Marvin been disclosed? I don't see an explanation for why the rush. If we've been in this status for 20 years, what's the reason to rush now? Efforts to delay this to October failed miserably, using the same charade, the 2-to-1, and you vote. If in fact village council members step down, and you can pack the council with members who are pro-development, pro your position, you at a minimum will get your agenda. I hope your agenda is not feathering your own nest.
Thank you. Next up, we have Heather Dannenberg.
Hey, good morning. I'm Heather Dannenberg. I don't think this is a good idea. In a municipality of only 6,000 people, it doesn't seem appropriate that we have the mayor vote. When you look at Charlotte, Mayor Vi Lyles only votes if there is a tie. And so given the size of Charlotte in proportion to the size of Marvin, why would we feel that we need to have a mayor that votes and everything? We have elected village council members based on what we feel they're going to do to serve the good of Marvin. I don't think it's necessary, Joe, that you be able to cast a vote in every situation. I don't think that it serves the people. I think it seems a little self-serving, especially given the fact that our municipality in scale is much smaller than anything else in the state. Also isn't the norm. If there was some extenuating circumstance of why this was needed or how it's going to better serve the population, that could be considered, but it just doesn't appear to be that way. And also, too, as you guys on council think of your votes, remember, we're not going to be short-sighted. How you vote and proceed impacts not only today, but the future council members, future mayors. So remember, giving the mayor authority to vote today, it's not just Joe, but whoever comes after him. You may agree with Joe today, but you may not agree with the next people 5, 10, 20 years from the road. So everything you do and say today impacts your future. So I'm daring you to be outstanding individuals of integrity and do the right thing. You were voted into office by these people who trust you. So vote the way they want you to. This is not a self-serving endeavor. You're here to serve the people. And I really don't feel that giving the mayor the vote in every situation is doing that. Thanks.
Thanks. Next up, I have Robert X.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm speaking to you as a resident right now. I'm a council member, but I'm also a resident and have been for 14 years. I'm obviously opposed to Joe giving himself an authority that other villages do not have, other towns do not have, and the state statute does not allow for it. Hopefully you all are doing your own research instead of depending just on a little bits of information. So what I did is I brought a little more information that can be found on the village website, and I would encourage you to do so. Don't believe any one person. Do your own research. Some questions everyone should be asking is, whose idea was it? Was it Joe's? Was it Nick's? Was it Kim's? You should be asking them. Their phone numbers are on the website. Give them a call. Those numbers may change, by the way, as we get different phones, but call them. And why? Why? I've yet to hear a good justification. All this came up after Mary was appointed to Ron Sanlomeo's council seat. They still have the majority, as you can see. You witnessed it today, okay? But that's not enough. And to that point, at the April 10th, 2008 meeting, Joe put on the agenda discussion and consideration of amending council's rules of procedure to add a new rule, supermajority required for appointments, removals, hiring, and firing, to amend the Village of Marvin's personnel policy and hiring authority policy to reflect this new rule. He wanted a supermajority vote. It was no longer about 2-2. He wanted it to be, everything had to be 3-2. That way, they would always have the majority. And that's what's really going on here. Always having the majority. Now, this here is a resolution clarifying mayor and council rules that was drafted in 2009. Okay? Nick, your name's on it. It was amended in 2011. I assume that's when you were mayor. I mentioned this document at the last meeting, and you waved it off like you didn't know it existed. Now, someone should ask me where I found it. I'll ask me. I found it in our rules and procedures packet at the last retreat meeting. I found it again in our rules and procedures packet at the meeting last year. And I didn't go back any further than that because I think that's enough. And since Joe's been the mayor for 3 terms now, I would think by now he would have read this. And I'd like to read it, but there's not enough time, so I brought copies. But some of the highlights are simply, the village council has not delegated any other authority to the mayor, included but not limited to the authority to give directions to employees, contractors, or persons, or entities subject to the regulatory authority of the village. So ask yourself, have you ever heard of Joe meeting with somebody, doing something that you might see in the movies, but doesn't really happen in the village, isn't supposed to happen in the Village of Marvin? We are a council mayor form of government. I have 10 seconds, so everyone can have these. It's public record already. Now it's definitely public record. Sorry there's only 10 copies. Maybe you can share. Here's one I wrote on. You're welcome to that one. And this is the agenda from that April 10th meeting. I did not bring a copy. You're welcome. You can just pass that around.
Stuff I have not rolled about.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. First off, I want to remind everybody that Councilman Epps was first appointed before he ran for council. Now, Councilman Epps, when he was appointed, he had to fill out the application, he had to go through the process, and there were many people who wanted to become a council person in the Village of Marvin. Now, Councilman Epps was chosen amongst the very well-qualified candidates. Now, I don't understand why Councilman Epps thinks it's okay for when he was appointed that you run through the process, that you interview all candidates that are qualified to become a council person. But now Councilman Epps wants to appoint it on a 2-to-1 when Nick's not there. Aren't you contradicting yourself, Councilman Epps? Let the process, you say the process, you're talking about the mayor hasn't voted in 20 years. That's been the process for 20 years. Why do you want to change the process now? I mean, ask yourself that question. You're asking everybody to ask them questions. Ask yourself the question. Why do you want to change that? Why can't it be the way it was? Secondly, we've been inundated with a lot of emails, listening to Marvin, all these different emails. You know, you ask yourselves, how did they get my email address? Where did they get I signed up for the Village News, but now they have my email address. How is that possible? Ask yourself that question. All right? And I opened up Twitter today and I saw Marvin Village News. My question is that the official publication of the Village of Marvin? It is not. Do we have a copyright on our logo?
Why is...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not done.
Questions being answered and no one else is...
We're about to respond.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Christina, Barbie...
Can you pause the time? I was rudely interrupted by Councilman
That's
Epps.
fine. I mean, he's asking questions, they're rhetorical questions, but that's something that we already agreed to in the rules change.
Stop answering.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Okay, but we've agreed in the rules change, which are brand new.
You should preside over the meeting and make sure that everyone knows the rules.
I got it.
And they're equal.
So, right, so we are not responding as staff, if we, just a reminder, because we just However, did we approve that in this? Yes. Okay. Which wasn't approved because we tabled those things. But either way, that's
well, it's not urgent we're answering. I'd like.
But we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna hear the people out, and please, staff, reminder, and council refrain from responding to. If you're gonna ask a question, make it rhetorical, and I'm sure the staff will get back to you. Okay, please resume. Sorry, Michael.
No problem. So the question was, do we have a copyright on our village seal? If we do, then we need to investigate because they took that seal and put it on the Marvin Village News. Now that can be people can be misled to believe that this is an official publication from the Village of Marvin. They have the Village of Marvin seal. So when you see that, you think, wow, the Village of Marvin has a publication on it. First official publication. But when you read in it, it's propaganda. So why are we allowing that to happen? We should investigate who is doing that, who is behind it. And that's my question. I can't ask a question you can't answer, but I would like council to ask each council member, are you behind Marvin Village News? Have you had anything to do with Marvin Village News? Do you know who is responsible for Marvin Village News? It looks very, very familiar. I've seen that font, I've seen that. It looks a lot like your election, Mr. Epps.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, I think it looks a lot like Mr. Epps's. That's not an accusation, it's an opinion, but thank you.
Please continue on. What did he say? He says it looks like a lot like
the fonts, the font. The web page looks a lot like, it's just very similar. And I would ask the council person to ask each other, did anybody have anything to do with Marvin Village News? Is anybody behind that? Okay. And the same thing, listening to Marvin, you're getting that. If that doesn't have a political slant to it, just remember where you're getting your news from. Think about where that news is coming from and do your own research and see where truth is and where lies are. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I get your name and address? I didn't hear it.
Sure, I'll give you the address.
Oh, you used to tell me.
Oh, I said it in public.
Oh, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Oh, certainly.
Can you say it again?
Barbie, can you read back his name and address? You bet.
10, what is it, Medina Court?
1,000.
1,000 Medina Court. Okay, look like another number in there. 1,000 Medina Court in Marvin. Okay. Next up I have Margaret.
Michael LaBelle was the name.
Michael LaBelle. Yes, sorry. Next up is Margaret Shapiro.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add.
Okay, thank you. And that does it for the comments. And we do have a number of emails, I believe, that we have that could be submitted for the record as well.
Do you want those read?
I mean, at this point, I want to give whatchamacallit enough time, so thank you for your comments.
Can I make a comment there? Nobody asked the council to schedule a public hearing on a charter amendment at a work session. So to hear you say at this point several times, Mr. Mayor, that we don't have a lot of time to leave for the PRNG board, to me seems disingenuous.
Okay.
Because this meeting with the PRNG board was scheduled almost a year ago.
Right.
And so to put the public hearing at their meeting and then act as if you're concerned about them having enough time for their meeting is disingenuous. I'm sorry, I have to say.
I agree with a lot of what I heard and stuff, and some of the things that were said even by members about adding to things. I agree with a lot of it, so I'd like that debate to be held September 11th when we can get more people in. And we can get more feedback, and people have not only opportunity to add to what they said today, but in public comment on September 11th, they can add to their add to the comments, and then we'll go into discussion. So we're giving it ample opportunity, and we're looking at September 11th and discussing it as well, is my understanding, because we're not going to take a vote on it. So.
Barbie, even though that's public record, since I referenced the document, I wanted it inserted in public record as part of the minutes.
And for that matter, anyone who wants to put their information that they spoke today or anything else in public record, feel free to give that to our clerk.
Sorry, I just want to also make sure that if we need to make a motion, I'd like to be sure that each of the written comments that were submitted and requested to be part of the public comment submission be entered into the record. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Do we need a motion?
We've got consent, unanimous consent. So.
Anybody that's saying that, and there's still time up until September 11th. So. Okay, so I need a motion to close the public hearing. All's in favor? Aye. Motion. All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next up is the real quick administration update.
I just had a ADA report. We actually just got this back yesterday, so I haven't had time to review it, but you guys, y'all can review this at your leisure, but we met with the architect, reviewed ADA on the Reasons property, the report's coming around. I don't have an official synopsis of what it is yet, because I literally just got it yesterday afternoon. Is there not enough?
No, that's fine. I'll put mine later.
And before everyone leaves, there's a few important items that will probably get snuck in. I just thought you might want to know, including we're looking at purchasing that house instead of building our village hall, just so everyone knows. I know we get focused on the one item now and again, but this is going on too.
Okay.
I don't really have anything to report from this, because I haven't had a chance to review it, so.
Okay, so there's no action or anything we need to do. Okay, well, we did get it done, and there is a report, so we'll put that on September 11th. Thank you. All right, next up I have new business, PRG agenda, sorry. My apologies if I think if we get to do, we have to call a special meeting that has things we do what we can. My apologies.
Does everybody have the agenda?
What was the page again, Mary?
It's 48.
48.
It's on the back side of like.
The yellow chair.
And Joe, you said that there's a hard stop at 10:45, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, because we're closing the meeting and stuff, there is a hard, Nick has an appointment at 11 o'clock, so yes. So we want to try and get through as much as we can.
Although we can excuse Nick and continue with the meeting.
Yeah, I guess that was going to be my next question. Since we still have a quorum, if Nick were to leave, could we go ahead, rather than, because we've had like 2 postponements.
My concern is the suspending of the rules that happened last time in a 2-to-1 vote, and then they add new things on the agenda. So
Could you speak up for the crowd?
I'm asking the attorney.
Yes, but it's still a public meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So my concern is, if we excuse Nick, or we don't excuse him, then everything's it's a 2-to-1 vote. So can council, like they did before, in the middle? Right.
I don't think they can hear you either.
Right. So, okay, so what my concern is what happened in the past, in the middle of the meeting, where we were, they suspended the rules.
Can everyone hear?
I hope so. They suspended the rules and added a resignation and also added an appointment. This is where the whole thing came in of after they just got done talking about trusting council and stuff, and this is kind of the reason behind allowing me to vote, because allowing me to vote just kind of stops the process.
Point of order, sir, point of order. We're talking about the PRG.
Right. So, but the issue is that she is asking if we excuse him, can these 2 council members basically take advantage like they did the last time, but it was say 2-to-1, say we'd like to suspend the rules and add something to the agenda with Nick not being here. Can they?
They can attempt to do that. Yeah.
But they have 2-to-1. Is that?
Well,
unless he's excused, that his vote would count as a yes, unless you guys moved it.
Right. So, long story short, I'm uncomfortable because the judge hasn't ruled on this yet about when we excuse and having a 2-to-1 advantage, where in the middle of a meeting, someone can suspend the rules and then add whatever to the agenda. So, we're going to end the meeting as soon as we can.
Well,
so to be clear, what you're doing is you're changing the course of a public meeting and the PRG based on one event in history that you believe is going to repeat itself.
You've already proved it. Shame on you for doing it.
Shame on you for doing it
once. Shame on me for allowing you to continue to do it.
I asked a question. I said, so you're going to compromise further village business based on one event. I just want to make sure it's clear.
If you didn't hear the mayor, what he's wanting is to make sure that they have the majority the entire time. You got it? Okay, that's what he wants, the entire time. So all the constituents that voted for me, you do not have a voice as long as this goes on.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the agenda. Number 1 was to adopt the agenda. We already did that earlier. I moved the second item to be lower. So the first one is the 5-year park capital improvement budget and plan. I made 12 copies. Hopefully that's enough. Just as a reminder to council, a couple of months ago, Derek, our park manager, brought a recommendation or an idea of adding a toddler playground to the park. And council asked PRG to consider that as far as making it where it would fall into the priorities for capital projects for the park. And so that's what we've done. Derek, at our last meeting, we asked him, to the extent he could, to assign dollar amounts. So a lot of the dollar amounts you're seeing on this that I just got from Derek, we haven't really reviewed, but I did have a chance yesterday to look at them, and I think that they would not change our opinion as far as priorities. Our priority would be number one, the lakeside corridor makeover. We like the idea. We've discussed this in the past of putting a sort of a pavilion or cover, whatever you want to call it, on the old home site. It has a nice vista.
Sorry, didn't hear. Which site?
The old home site in the
Field
park.
driveway.
Oh, okay, got it. Home site. Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
It has a nice vista down to the lake, right. And again, we haven't really gone into detailed research. So all these facts and things, we're not making decisions today. We're just giving our opinion as far as what we think the priorities might be. Obviously, council can change that at any time. Derek also provided a copy of an example of one, which is the next page. We haven't talked about materials. This one, is metal. We might want to do something that's more like the structures we have in the park today. But we did say picnic tables, it would be open, and it would have a grill for people to use. The second item within this, because the home site has a septic system, has water, has electricity, having additional bathrooms down there would make it a lot more usable by the public, I guess, for events. If they wanted to rent out the pavilion. Also, it makes it more convenient for other people to. Community garden people, other people in the park, not to have to walk all the way up. However, it's a big ticket item. Derek pulled the numbers from the last bathrooms, so we don't know if we could use the septic system. It might be less, that kind of stuff. So what we would say is, you don't have to do both of them. We're saying if we could do the pavilion and then just look at the bathroom separately. Again, we're just saying these would be our priorities. To definitely do the pavilion first, and if we could consider the bathroom and get the funding, that would make it a lot more attractive.
So we don't know if this current septic will.
Correct. We haven't.
Oh, well, it will.
The septic was it was new in preparation for our looking at plans to renovate the home and use it for village purposes, and then. So that was new.
Yeah. It should. But again, we haven't really looked into all those kind of details. All that kind of detail, and really all of these would have to be researched and really defined. But our priority would be the pavilion, then the bathrooms.
Got it.
The C, D, and E are really small items which could be handled within the annual park budget, and that's what we would recommend. They're not contingent upon the A and B. The second one, the barn corridor makeover, that area would be where the toddler playground would be put. Again, we'd say that that's a lower priority for us, but so that's why it's number 2. B, C, and D could be done within the annual budget. It does not need to be a capital plan. These are small dollar amounts. And E is to replace the aging playset that we currently have. Derek got someone to look at it, and he thinks there's probably 5 years left on the playground, the existing play set. So that's just something that for capital budget, you know, 5 years out, we're probably going to have to replace it. So, number 3 is the equipment additions and storage, and we've talked about this before. One of the issues is as we build greenways, we will have to have someone maintain them. And right now, the park staff is doing that with their own personal vehicles. So one of these, really item C, the truck, probably would be, if we continue down that path, which we're going to talk about greenway maintenance a little bit later, we can't really ask the park staff to continue to use their personal vehicles, I don't think, to haul equipment around to maintain our greenways. And so if you add another piece of equipment, you have to have a third bay on the garage. So you can sort of see it's a domino effect. So,
can I comment?
Sure.
The truck thing's been brought up for a few years now. Like you said, it's a domino effect. So the reason I have a problem with the town buying a truck is with the liability, the insurance, the truck itself, the maintenance, all that, so that we can maintain a trail that could be subcontracted for a fraction. And if you span that over 10 years, at which time we may need 2 trucks by then, you spread that cost over 10 years and there's still no break even on buying a vehicle. I don't think we should be spending our money on buying a truck. Now we should be looking for ways that the staff does not have to use their own vehicles. But in my business for the last 20 years, anyone I ever worked for, I had to use my own vehicle, but they paid me for it. I got paid mileage. And if I put their sign on the side of it, I got paid for having the sign. But it was always my truck. And there's a reason businesses do it. There's a reason FedEx is even doing it, UPS. People are buying their own vehicles left and right because no one wants the liability. And I don't think the Village of Marvin needs the liability.
And we,
Can I comment, just with all due respect, the park manager position also has a code enforcement piece, and you're asking that person to go have confrontations with the public in their personal vehicle.
Do you have a lot of confrontations with the public? Are you doing a lot of ordinance follow-up? I mean, we can check the logs, and the only reason I'm asking, I'm not pushing back on you. What I'm suggesting is maybe that should be subcontracted out. Maybe we don't need you doing ordinance follow-up if you're uncomfortable with either doing it or with your vehicle being on site. Any park manager, you know, you happen to be the park manager. If you don't feel comfortable having your truck on site, just for the record, it's a small village. Once they see you, they know who you are. But are you finding people are getting in your face? Because I never wish that on you.
Yeah, I have good skills to, you know, de-escalate any confrontations, but I'm just saying it does exist. You know, there is that possibility. You know, especially in my.
It always exists. I had my tires slashed during the election. Yeah. Okay. I had broken bottles thrown in my horse pasture during the election. So that stuff does happen, and again, I'm not pushing back on you, I'm pushing back on this vehicle purchase. The finance officer brought it up 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, really? Do the math, it doesn't work. Not for the amount of money. We're talking about driving a vehicle from the park to the trail over here at Tullamore, we're gonna buy a truck for that? And then as far as the ordinance goes, you know, my question again, how many hours a week are you actually driving to someone's doorstep? I speculate it's less than an hour.
Some weeks it's 1 to 2, some weeks it could be 5 to 6 or 10. It just depends on when the complaints come in.
But it's still within the village.
If it's okay with the group, I think it's a great discussion to have, and I think we need to have it, and I think there's points on both sides, but I'm betting we probably should go through this given the time.
Well, and I agree with you, but what I think needs to happen is when we opened up these positions, we did the math back then, and it made more sense to do this stuff, to buy our own equipment, to buy a lawnmower. You know, we compared it to subcontracting stuff. I think we need to revisit that. If now we're adding a truck, insurance, liability, a shed improvement, I'm all for the first one, the the corridor makeover, the playground improvements, all the stuff that has a direct benefit to the village residents, I like. The stuff that just makes staff jobs a little easier, that has that kind of price tag, I want to talk about. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, that's fair.
And again, this, as far as our priorities, we're saying that would be priority 3. So again, it's just our opinion, and if Derek wants to submit more information. The trailer could also be handled within the annual budget. I do believe the trailer has become an issue. The one that they have is too small, but that would be handled in the annual budget.
Yeah, I'd like to add too, I was on the board when we did go through the considerations you're discussing, Robert, in terms of comparing taking out full-time staff, Andy, I think was as well, versus subcontracting. And at that stage, you know, it seemed to make sense. And though we haven't added a lot of trails, there are still more coming up. And the problem with adding these trails is that in some of the earliest cases, we have subdivisions that are to some degree maintaining the trails for us, you know, especially along the loop. In many of the newer cases, they're only required to give us the land and we're responsible for the maintenance. So our concern has been to start planning for these things so that as more of these greenways come on board, number one, a truck and adequate trailer would be more useful for those type purposes, but also just for the work that goes on. We have like the little utility, you know, vehicles that we utilize within the park, but even when you're spreading loads and loads of mulch and things like that, as much as the utility of having a truck on site oftentimes would make all those employees much more.
The other consideration, sorry John, I thought you were finished. The other consideration here is this, that I have been trying to point out ever since I've been with the PRG board, is that not just the cost of the vehicle and just the cost of the maintenance. We were spending a lot of money just to have the park mowed. When we did go from contracting it to having in-house personnel, that puts actual village people on the ground, so that we have somebody there that is employed by the village that's paying attention to our interests at the park. The guys mowing the grass for $10 an hour, they really don't care what goes on in the park. So what we're looking at as maintaining the park and our greenways, that puts eyes on the greenways where typically, even though we all love greenways and we all want them, typically those are places that things can happen, vandalism and other things that can possibly happen on those trails. So if we have a presence of our own people on these trails on a regular basis for maintenance, 2 things we can do. We care about what our trails look like, so therefore we are going to minimize our vulnerability to insurance claims and such from debris, things of that sort. And 2, we're going to keep an eye on our trails and make sure that they're safe for all of our residents. That's kind of where we're kind of coming from with keeping it in-house versus contracting. It's not always about the bottom line dollar amount, but it's more about village presence being there to kind of keep an eye on things and make sure that we identify potential pitfalls, you know, on our trails as they come. I personally have walked our loop with a professional paver who happens to be a friend of mine who's impartial and gave us a really good idea of how the maintenance needs to be done on this and give us great feedback. So that's one of those things that we're trying to do is circumvent any kind of issues on our greenways. We want them to be the best greenways in the area.
We do have, later in the agenda, we're going to talk about greenway maintenance in detail.
Let me just comment back to him. I agree with everything he said. You're looking at a guy that voted for the change. Okay, I was involved in that change.
I'm just giving you our position, so I'm not.
No, my only issue is the truck. I don't think you need a truck to do all that. And if you do, I need to know the numbers. It's my role as a village council.
I agree.
Financial responsibility. I'd like to see the numbers of where we are today on all in, not just park manager, but if it takes a truck to do the job, it takes a mower to do the job, you got to put all those numbers in, apples to apples. You got to treat it like a business and say, all right, are we 5,000 over and is it worth it?
Yeah.
Personally, I think so, yeah. If it's $5,000 a year to have bodies on the trail, love it. I'm all for it, right? I'd rather see someone pulling weeds than using Roundup personally, but
I'm with you.
But if it's 50 grand more, we need to talk about it. That's all I'm saying. And the truck is what pushes that. So it's about the truck. It's not about park manager or part-time staff. It's all about this truck.
Well, this is why we're bringing it for
Sorry,
discussion so that we can look at this
Point of
in more
information.
depth and
Sorry.
make a good
Point of
informed
information.
decision.
I just want to be sure, because I see a lot of people here, and I just want to make sure, did we table all items from A through F?
Yes.
Including, because what I'm guessing is that there may be people here who are suspecting we'll be talking about the charter amendment, and if we're not, I want to be sure that they hear that and know that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
there will be no vote, just for all of you, if you're, I'm glad you're here. There will be no vote on the charter amendment, but we are just.
You're all more than welcome to stay, but I just want you to know
So we
that
table
there's no.
A through F.
Right,
Yes.
they will not be discussing the charter amendment anymore, just in case you wanted to leave. Sorry, I could just sort of see that there was waiting.
Christina, did we table A through F completely?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so continuing on, item 4 and 5 are actually brand new. Derek added those the last couple of days, so we have not discussed those. So rather than us talking about those today, we'd like to discuss them in more detail at the next PRG meeting, and then we'll get back to you guys. One item that we had also mentioned that's not on this is changing the entrance sign so on the park so it's perpendicular. Yeah. It's more visible. Derek is looking into signage rules and all that kind of stuff, but we would probably need 2 sides on the sign. Right now we only have 1 sign, so we'd have to, I don't know how much that's going to cost. So anyway, that's just another thing that we had talked about as far as a lot of people drive by the park and they don't even know it's there because they don't see the sign. It's on the fence right now. We're saying just pull it out and make it perpendicular so that people will see it. So
Where's that, Mary? Sorry, where was that? in
it's
there?
not on here.
It's not.
It's
Okay.
something we've talked about, but it's not on the park.
So it wouldn't be under one of these, it would be sort of a separate item? Okay.
He's just looking at right now what the signage rules are, if we can even do it, you know.
Do you think, I always think about when I go on properties, you know, that are interesting and stuff, especially ranches and stuff, they have it hanging up and over like you'd go under some, would that, rather than a perpendicular sign, is that more inviting or?
It would still be hard to see.
Just curious.
It's the visibility issue versus.
The trees that are out there that block your view of a sign that is parallel to the road versus a perpendicular sign, which we're trying to get visibility for the park, and a lot of people miss it.
And I'm not trying to cut people off, just I'm aware of the time. We have some important issues. So the next item is the actual priorities for our Greenway, our 5-year Greenway plan.
I'm sorry, I'm going to keep asking a bunch of
Okay.
questions. Back to this just for 1 second. What is it that the council, the board, because I'm kind of new back at this again, what do you want us to do with this? Like, do you want us to consider these at our next agenda, agenda, or?
Those are really to give you priorities.
What council asked us to do was to give our priorities.
Okay.
And then once the council agreed or disagreed, I think that's when Derek would go into more detail as finding all the facts about all these things.
Okay.
And then come back with a plan to the council to say, but we don't want him expending his time if council disagrees with that priority.
So it's probably a good idea then just to put this on an agenda for discussion.
And if I might, Councilmember Scoot, we had discussed in PRG meeting that I am planning to do a capital improvement plan for the entire village. And so this would be a part of that, and we formalize that a little bit more. And we're going to do that based on what their priorities are, and then at that point, council would adopt that CIP plan. And if you disagree with it before the time that we get there, then we can add it on the agenda. But our intent now is to add it as they have it, but you still have the final say-so as to if that gets approved or not.
So would each of these items be on that CIP?
They would, but again, the CIP is not going to be something that is budgetarily binding. So if Councilmember Epps or anyone else wants to have further discussion about vehicles or equipment, that's a discussion we can have then, and it has to be approved in the budget anyway.
So when it's presented?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Is that?
Yes. Okay. Do you have any tape by any chance in your little box? If not, that's okay. I'll hold it up to you. Hold them together.
I don't know if one of these is for you. I'm not sure.
Oh, yes.
And if you have time,
All
I'll show
right,
you.
so you guys have seen this before.
Yeah.
I altered it a little bit. Chris had maintenance on here, which I separated. So these are, as far as what our priorities would be, what we would recommend, the order of the greenways to be constructed. This is just construction. This is not maintenance. Year 1 through 5, the Tullamore Phase 1 has already been completed. The yellow items are completed items. And then the second item, Amber Meadows. As you know, the developer put that trail in, and we felt like they did not do a very good job, and so we asked them to rebuild it. And what they have agreed to is, we got a quote for how much it would be to build it to the same standards that we have adopted, and it's basically the Tullamore standard for a natural trail, and it's the estimate was $17,000 approximately to rebuild it, and the developer has agreed, as far as I know, what's current is that they will fund $11,000 of that. Okay.
I'm just pointing to the areas.
Yeah. And one thing, just to step back, one of the consent items was approving. Apparently, we had always been told, if you look at the top, it says who is responsible, and it says fund balance $127,000. We had always been told that's just a fund for greenways, that it really wasn't, assigned to different, greenways. And one of the consent agenda items was that right now, today, it says the Marvin Loop extension, the Town Hall Trail, and the Tullamore parking lot are the ones that are making up that fund. And what they're proposing is we just have a fund that would include Tullamore Phase 2, Innisbrook, the Town Hall, and Amber Meadows. And I totally support that, because that's what we always thought it was. Because if you limit it, it's just like last year when we had the Town Hall was supposed to be the greenway that was built. Well, it got postponed because of the roundabout and all that kind of stuff. So we couldn't do anything. We couldn't, change when something gets snagged. If you have it specific and just say you can't do anything else, then we can't fix Amber Meadows. We can't do anything. So this consent item, I totally support.
I'm sorry, which consent item?
It was
maybe I'm a little
the
lost.
budget, basically, so just saying, rather than it being just the Town Hall and just the Tullamore Trail Phase 2, that it would cover Tullamore Phase 2, Innisbrook, the Town Hall, or Amber Meadows. So it gives us the ability. You'll see that all of us
Same funds, just relabeled, and instead of specific projects, all one project.
It gives you the
under
ability to say, if one gets stalled,
Yep.
which we're going to go through, and some of these have gotten stalled,
Yep.
you can still do your #1 priorities, but you're not limited, like we were last year, we couldn't do anything.
Right, right.
So anyway, the next one is the Town Hall Trail. We got a nice surprise at our last meeting that the preserve developer, I think it's Toll Brothers, has actually agreed to build that trail for us. Their residents really want it, and so they said they would be willing to pay for it and do it, and totally to our standards. They're writing up the contract now, and it has all of our trail standards.
Was there any discussion, because I've walked those trails too with a number of people, including the trail person and stuff, and revisiting moving that all the way over, because in front of the preserve, it's like a pathway to nowhere.
Yes.
And it just ends. Is there a possibility that part of that trail can be extended from, as you're looking at the preserve, to the right, and they go along backside the house, so anyone walking in there, instead of accessing it from the very back, is have that pathway go somewhere?
We had recommended it go on the tree line that would be behind the houses. Right now, it's our easement is to go down the main road, and then they cut through some houses. And we said, we thought that was bad, and that it would be better to have it in the tree line, and you're not disturbing people, you're not walking down their street.
The tree line behind in the backyards of the houses.
Backyards of the homes on the right, yes, correct. Yes.
And Toll Brothers came back and said no, that they didn't want to do that.
What was their objection?
They said that it's the people's properties, that those, that back up to that tree line.
But there are easements there, right?
No, they said that they didn't have the.
They don't have.
They didn't have the right to do it.
The 25-foot preservation area should be there.
Well, that's what we thought, but they were saying no. Yeah. And we approved it as going down, we didn't, PRG didn't, let me just get that straight. Going down the street, we never really liked that idea. But apparently at some point the village years ago agreed to that. So we're sort of stuck.
Okay.
Also, something I'm going to bring up later is if Town Hall is built on that, in that house, we have to figure out how people are going to get across the street. But that's just something we need to talk about. I'm sure there's all kinds of issues in converting that from a residential into a community center. So, but yes, we did ask them, and they said no.
So other than the fact that they feel that that's going to encourage them, because there's not many homes that are sold yet, right? So, but I know doing something after the fact is a little more, but when they do it ahead of time, is there anything you think we can do? Because I think that pathway to nowhere doesn't make any sense, and I'm not sure what we do with what's going to happen on that other corner.
Originally, we talked to the local people, and they agreed with us. But when they escalated it up with Toll Brothers management, court management, they were the ones that said no.
Even if we help participate with that. Because right now they're taking on the whole thing to just do it. I mean, and I appreciate that, and that's great. It saves us, what, $20-some thousand?
Well, it's actually more like 70,000 or something. It's a huge dollar amount.
Okay, okay. And that's great. I'm just saying is if it's possible to move it, because I think we've looked at it and it just makes sense to.
It's higher ground, it's better terrain, it's a straight line from the end of the sidewalk straight back to where it would pick up the other trails.
And you can meander that through, and with the trees there, and again, at the end of the day, when you look at how many people are actually using it, it's not that intrusive, and you probably couldn't even see them when it's.
I have to agree with the mayor. At the end of the day, these are still village trails. I mean, I think it's great that they're contributing and that they want to contribute, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that they came to the village because they're missing an asset and they're trying to encourage sales. That's their objective, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. Very creative on their part. But it shouldn't necessarily be the be-all and end-all when it comes to our planning and what's right for the village.
And this is totally disconnected.
Right.
This was a couple of months ago, when actually more than that we brought up moving it. When we were not, PRG did not know they were going down the street. And this is when we walked it, which was months and months ago. It was cold, so it was a long time ago. And so we were the ones that recommended it months ago. And again, we took it up their chain of command, and we said that we think this is actually better for your property.
Yes, I would think.
So
yeah, if that can be revisited.
So would you like us to revisit it? At the next meeting, we can appoint someone to go talk to.
I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. I'm just saying we didn't. They just recently, apparently, their people are really wanting the trail to be done.
Yes.
And they agreed to pay for it because they want to get it done. I guess, but it's disconnected. It wasn't part of the discussions. They just came to us.
Can I say for the record too that that's sort of the problem with having that item on the consent agenda and not having a clear plan ahead of time in terms of what they were requesting, just to say. And that was sort of one of my issues was, okay, great, they want us to approve this final plat re-amending the plan, but there really wasn't a clear plan as to where they were going to install these trails. And so just for the record, I think we need to be careful when we go to approve things like that. I'm not saying we can't reverse it, but those are my concerns.
Apparently the plan was approved that they go down, and we stumbled over it because we were looking into something.
And the Greenway plan, master plan, is that where it is?
No, it was recorded. The plat, or the final approved plan for their subdivision showed the Greenway going down that street. And
are we talking about the 9-acre property?
Yes.
That street?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah.
I just
And
wanted to
a cul-de-sac. And to be fair, I think the reason for the consent agenda item is it gets lumped into all. So if this gets boggled up just for a little bit, just to see if we have a conversation, we can get them to consider that in the back. you guys can still continue with Innisbrook and all the other stuff that we talked about, and it doesn't really.
In this case,
I think Mary was talking about that final plat being on consent agenda.
Yeah, not the 9 lot. I was a little confused when I realized after you were talking about the 9 lot subdivision when you mentioned the street. Sorry.
I think we're all caught up now.
So we're all caught up. Okay, I'm sorry. And then the next one would be Tullamore Phase 2. Right now, we're getting a new survey. Derek, is that done, the new survey for Phase 2?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we're ready to go on that very soon, right? And right now, the estimate is that would be $12,000 to finish that one up. That's the one that got delayed because of the retention water issues, and the engineer has said it's not a problem. We can put a pipe down, raise the ground a little bit, and we're fine.
Sorry,
that's the one that runs along the county line.
It's Q.
Where's on the list?
Okay, it's Q.
It's Q.
Let me. I'm sorry. The trail section.
Four down.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second column is trail section. It is the letters that you see here.
The reason I'm asking is because we're spending money to actually build and construct a trail there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just for the record, I've always been a little confused about why the funding has gone to construct trails there, because per their plat, that was something the developer was supposed to provide, and it was supposed to be natural.
That's one of my agenda items.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I have found in the ordinances where it says that the developers are supposed to pay for the trails within subdivisions.
Yes. So.
And I don't understand why we agreed to pay for Tullamore, and now there's another one that came out.
Okay.
So, good. So we're just finishing what we had committed to, and no one really knows why we committed to it. Innisbrook is the next one. Again, it's been planned for years. There were some issues with the filing of the easement. Also, Kim, who lives there, told us about the fact that HOA is talking about constructing paths within their neighborhood, and they we're supposed to meet in August to discuss maybe changing where our trail goes. Also, they're putting a sewer line. They're redoing the sewer lines in front of Innisbrook, so we can't really do anything until that's done.
And then, hey, Mary, the HOA does not want the easement moved, so they still want it on the street side.
Okay, good. And the last item, I believe Chris, when she was the interim administrator, met with them, and there was some concern about it going nowhere on either end, not connecting to anything. And so we'll have to get past that hurdle as well, possibly. Our view on that is that you build what you can, as you can, and Marvin is going to be an entity for, hopefully 100 years more. And over time, those little pieces that we couldn't get, like there's this little house that's right between the preserve and Innisbrook that won't allow us to build the trail there. We can't get an easement from them. Maybe in 20 years we can. But it doesn't make sense not to go ahead and do Innisbrook, because what we found is if you don't go ahead and do things when you can, you lose the right over time. People forget, and so now we get into priorities number two, which would be things that we would like to pursue next. And if you look at F, right here is the village hall and the town hall. Here's the town hall trail here, and it connects to the loop, as you can see. This is the loop that was finished. So this will all be connected here. What we're saying is that this would be the next section. This would go down Waxhaw Marvin Road towards the Broadmoor subdivision. And
they've agreed to pay for that, from what I understand.
Broadmoor,
right?
it has.
Yes.
Yes.
And you just have to create a safe pedestrian walking around that second roundabout that's coming in, which I've seen them done. It just adds more signage.
What we need to do next, if you guys agree to the priorities, and that's something I'm going to ask you guys to consider, maybe not this meeting, but we need to start getting facts. We need to, how much is it going to cost? Where's the funding going to come from? Where is it going to go exactly? It's supposed to go on the west side according to all of our records. Easements, getting easements from the property owners. So, and we do have some funding. We have about 14,000 from Windmore. So,
which would be in lieu from across the street.
Yeah.
So again, at the end of this, I'm going to ask you guys to give us some direction. We have never had these formally approved by the council, our priorities, to make sure we're in agreement. And so, to be honest, we're sort of stuck. We're not making a lot of progress because we don't know, that we can. We don't want to expend the staff's time to go out and get actual estimates and all that kind of stuff if you guys think differently.
Can I ask staff a question? In the meantime, we have, is it fund balance that's set aside for Greenway development? And is that budgeted? And I know we want to do a CIP, but if they don't have direction yet to move on these projects, what do we have currently that they can utilize?
We have a reserve account. It would have to be appropriated to whatever it is that they want to expend, but it's a capital reserve account, so they can't expend it unless y'all appropriate it.
We have 127,000 right now in that bucket.
I thought we had an actual allocation for the village hall trail that goes to the village property.
Yes, we do. That was one of the consent items, is to lump all that stuff together and all these #1 priorities, so we could shift those dollars around. Because if the developer pays for it, that's money that's freed up.
Well, are they just talking about paying from point A to somewhere here, or are they
They said
going
the whole
all the way to
thing.
the village hall?
They're connecting to the other preserve.
Yeah.
Right?
They're actually going to put it apart in the back of that preserve
Yes.
section too, so they've agreed to do the whole thing. So it will be a significant amount of money that would be freed up.
Our understanding is
But
that
is
even
it-
their neighborhoods, the two different neighborhoods, were asking for some connectivity.
What were you going to say,
which we sent
Christina?
to them.
Sorry.
Well, the main preserve over there was apparently sold on the fact that there'd be green area behind them, our village hall, and trails.
Yes.
So that was part of their selling point, so that's part of the reason they want to get it done.
Correct.
They're probably getting pressure from those folks.
That was what we were talking about.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I get the funding idea. So is it currently assigned to a specific project, and that's why?
It should be. I don't know how it's allocated as far as how the capital accounts are set up.
Okay.
We can bring that to council at the next meeting
Maybe
or
That's
a
what we
subsequent
need to do.
meeting.
That's what this consent item was.
Okay.
It's the 4 trails that we just talked about. And again, I'm not saying that has to be approved.
No, that's okay.
At your next
Sorry,
meeting-
I'm catching up.
Yeah, I'm assuming at the next meeting, these consent items would be reviewed and approved, and that would cover all the trails that are priority #1. So since this would be priority number 2, it probably would have to be at least in next year's budget or capital plan to say we will reallocate those funds to, if it's F or G or whatever.
So you're suggesting that we kind of get all that information, put it on the consent agenda, and then at the next meeting that we can, if somebody wants to discuss it, we pull it
Well,
off and then.
I don't know that we're going to be able to get,
That's
it'll
it?
take us quite some
Okay.
time. My goal would be to have it ready for when you do the budget for next year.
Oh, okay.
That's another thing I would say. We have not been involved. We've had 0 involvement in that, and I think that's a mistake.
Absolutely.
I think we should be able to give input to the budgeting process for the next
Great.
year. But that's just an aside. And quickly, I'm sorry, then the next section would be G. Well, we have Broadmoor here, but then part of this is our responsibility too. They're just doing the front of their, development.
Mary, if I might interrupt to answer her question real fast. So the fund balance of 127 looks like it's roughly the capital project balance that are included in that. The 72 for the Marvin Extension Town Hall Trail, and then the 55 for the Tullamore. So that,
Where have you been pulling money to research buying this house on the corner?
contingency. We're gonna have to do either a budget amendment to pull it from reserve, or I can pull it from the 50,000 contingency. I haven't had any expenditures other than the 900 for
Engineer.
the engineer report that was done a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago, which we just pulled it out of engineering. I will have to pay for this report that we just got for ADA, and if I pull it from contingency, if we don't have enough in the engineering or wherever it is that we pull it from originally, I'll have to report that back to council, that it's reported from the contingency.
So I guess where I'm really headed with that is there a likelihood that the capital money they're expecting to use will shrink?
No, no. This capital money that they have for the trails is earmarked for their trails. We can't touch it.
But it needs to be designated for a project
Yes.
before they can use it.
It looks like that it was in,
This is what I'm talking
when the capital.
I'm trying to make sure that you
When the
guys have
capital
what-
project was initially set, for whatever it was set for, I don't know, it was set for
So this
Greenways,
is-
and I don't know if y'all
This was
earmarked for,
This is what she's talking about.
engineering.
This is what was,
Okay.
and this is how they're saying, just lump everything together and say it's just for all four of these.
So that you can move.
Right,
be
and this was the
flexible.
consent item that
Okay.
will, I'm assuming, be covered in the next meeting.
yes.
Yeah, but there won't be dollars specific to any of these so that we can do
Right.
whichever one makes sense.
It's maintain flexibility.
Correct.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you. That helps.
So, Councilmember Epps, whenever we approve a capital budget to start with, capital project budgets can't be interchanged. So we can't move, if we set up a capital project budget for Village Hall, I can't move that to Greenways or vice versa. So whatever we're spending on Town Hall, it's not going to affect their capital project
So
at
what
all.
we did here with this consensus is we basically lumped.
Put them all together,
all of those-
and they have the
these
authority
trails
to-
into one project where they can continue to pull and not stop the process.
Correct.
Which, yeah, I'm all for.
Yeah.
So do you have, it sounds like you have part of what you need.
Yeah, well, again, let me go through the rest of these for the next 5 years, because those are the ones that, you know, are important. The next one is G, which we've got some fee and lieu money from Broadmoor of $23,000, but again, we would need to get, you know, definitive information about how much it's going to cost, where the funding is going to come from, and so forth.
That's Waxhaw Marvin Road to Henry Nesbitt. Let's think about it.
The next one is actually a new one. This was another one of those surprises to us. I didn't mark it on this map, but it's the back of the preserve. I don't know if you guys can see it, this yellow here. This was a surprise to us when they were looking at the plans, and somebody brought up, I think, Joe, you were in a meeting or something, and they said, oh, when are you guys going to build our Greenway? And we're like, what Greenway? And they looked at the approved project, or plat, or whatever it is, and there's a Greenway there. We've never known about it.
And that's behind Innisbrook, correct?
Yes.
Part of it is, 'cause I remember walking.
Yeah, but it goes up.
That leg that we walked.
Okay.
So, again, we put that as a lower priority than F and G. Just because we didn't know about it, I don't know that it's our responsibility to prioritize it over.
So which one was that?
It's this new one. It's
R?
called U, the dark green,
Gotcha.
But if you guys feel differently, if you say, you know, no, we've committed to that.
But that one just ends in a street.
Yeah. The other thing is, we know where the Greenway is supposed to go. We've got all the easements, I'm assuming, because it's within the subdivision and they signed off on it. So we would be able to do it immediately. But I think it's one of those things that you find out how much the dollar amount is, find out how much the dollar amount is on F and G, and then you make a decision. Because F and G, we're going to have to get easements, we're going to have to do, you know, surveys and that kind of stuff. Whereas this U is, if we decide we want to pay for it and do it right then, we could do it.
So correct me if I'm wrong, this was probably before we had developers putting in, because in the last one we talked about the developer should be doing it. Why isn't the developer doing that if that's on?
No one knows why.
Mary, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But you got a great resource right here.
Yeah.
So if she doesn't know the answer today, she can probably get it for you, but I feel like it was around '09.
Which, the preserve?
No, that the rule changed on developers.
I've got the ordinance here.
Somewhere
And
there.
I just want to make sure, are we talking
Not only that.
Are we talking about you, the dark green one?
also has a choice.
Yeah.
They can either, one, develop it, or they can pay a fee in lieu.
They did
So
agree.
sometimes it's not.
Actually, I specifically us remembering authorizing the trail through their development, and because it was the first development we ever approved, where they had to also provide trailhead signs I don't know why I remember this stuff, but anyway, so they actually, it was first, we thought that was a big deal, because up until then, people had been complaining, they didn't know a trail was there, they'd move in, they'd be upset about a greenway. So Preserve is actually the first, they're actually supposed to have signs installed telling people where the greenway is supposed to go.
But it's your understanding, we agreed, the village agreed to pay for it, right?
The signs, I think. But I think the development of the trails, again, was on them. So that's a little bit unusual.
Are you willing to look at it?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I'll look.
Because they believe that we're paying for it.
It's on us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Crane Road, again, as you can see, as we go down the list in priority, these are priority number 3. They sort of get harder and more expensive. But again, this would be our order. So I'm going to go through 3 quickly because they would be probably further out towards 3 or 4 years out. The Waxhaw Marvin Sedgefield, then the Chimneys.
Chimneys is the one we worked all summer on, every Saturday.
And we're not giving up on it. But this would connect everything. You can sort of see we're going down, so we're connecting everything. The Crane Road was because of the schools. We feel like it's very important because it's such an unsafe road. That was the reason why we put that one in there.
Isn't there some sort of opportunities with to seek funds federally or statewide when it involves going by or taking into a school that we can tap into? I believe they're
separate from PAL, just because it connects to school.
Yes, I believe there is. So if we could look into that, find out, especially if we're going right by the school, if there's a way we can tap into those resources.
I can tell you that we applied for that, and the reason we couldn't get it at the time was because it was not within the jurisdiction of Marvin.
Yeah, it's not.
And that was the problem.
We've
Unfortunately.
also discussed other types of monies that are out there. So, for example, one of the options is along the power lines, right? Because there's those huge power lines that really cut through Waxhaw Marvin Road, over to Crane, all the way up to Providence Road, actually. So that would be difficult to do. We'd have to work with individual homeowners to a great degree. But there are monies available, like by Duke Power and places like that, for improvements.
And John, we still have the easement, don't we, through Chimneys, as far as I know?
Yes. John, didn't we discuss, and I think we directed staff to look into Duke Power's.
Well, actually, Bob looked at it.
Okay, Bob. So what was your finding on Duke Power's easement? Are we?
I'm sorry, I don't want to stop everybody, but we are at 10:45. So if we need to stop, I don't want to get into that. It might be a good breaking point. So do we want to postpone to a new date? I'd like to. Okay.
Could we do that? Yeah. My apologies for having to have this.
I'll work with Christina. I'm out all of September. I'm out of country. So I'll work with Christina and our board members to get another date that works for everybody.
Can I make one proposition? I'll make one proposition. If the only issue is the council's discomfort with with excusing just one member, we would have quorum. I take that back. For a minute there, I was going to say we could adjourn and then continue at least hearing what you have to say, but we would have quorum, so we couldn't do that.
We're not making decisions today. It's more of informational sharing is my perspective. But if anybody's uncomfortable that some decisions would be made, I'd rather postpone, I guess, is what I would say.
Sean wants to say
one other.
Did you want to get clarity on the master plan to see if you want to they want to prompt staff to move forward?
I'd rather wait.
Okay.
And would you like to see this in just not that you have to answer now, but in a special meeting or a long, because sometimes, as you see, that these work sessions and other things, lumping it in. Special meeting. Can we do a special meeting?
Yeah, because we totally envisioned it would just be us, our stuff. Or we wouldn't have tried to pack so many things into it.
Let's do a special meeting. Yeah. So let's work on that. We'll figure out what days and what works best for you. And
John Barris just wanted to say something.
Yeah, one other thing I'd like to add that perhaps council would consider as we move forward is reinstalling a council liaison to the
I'll come back.
PRG board.
If you guys miss me, I'll come back.
And I say that because a lot of things do.
We need to vote on that.
A lot of things do come up.
We should vote on it, but it should be its own agenda item, I think.
Yeah,
I just wanted to bring that up.
yeah, that was one of the items we had at the end. I mean, she could informally, you know,
Put that on September.
you know, come when she wants to.
Did we actually make an official motion to excuse her
No,
from it?
no, you just said you don't have to go anymore.
She was,
Okay. Well, if she's approved.
that's up to you
Oh,
all.
yeah,
but I
if it's
don't
still
think we ever made a
approved.
motion to remove it.
Yep.
I don't remember there was.
We don't have to put it on.
I think it just helps the
Absolutely.
feedback.
I mean, we would have known about the Village Hall moving, and it's a two-way street. You guys would find out things that we are talking about too.
Sure.
So I just think it's, you know, it's a good idea.
Okay.
I'll come back,
Very good.
or unless you want somebody else.
We want to
So I guess I will recess, or what do we call it? Adjourn or recess?
adjourn, make a motion to adjourn your meeting first.
Okay.
Well,
Rob seconded it.
are we done? I just want to make sure that you
Yeah.
said everything you
Yeah.
wanted to do for today?
Yeah, I think so.
So you're adjourned?
Yes.
You take a vote, okay. And then it goes right into us adjourning, so I'll make, have your motion to adjourn.
Did we vote to?
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.